and welcome here to Talk FCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, for a full Barça news roundup. We're going to be talking in some detail about the pivot position at Barça. We've also got the return of Lamine Yamal, and we're going to be talking in some detail about Dani Olmo. It is all on the way for you. Get ready. And let's do it. Because let's kick off immediately then, guys, by talking more about the pivot position at Barcelona. Because obviously, coming into the summer, this was going to be the big area of the team that all of us fans, we were talking about. We were thinking about there. What's going to happen in the pivot role? How are Barca going to solve some of those problems that we've been facing over the past season or so in the defensive area of midfield? What exactly are we going to do? And I think sitting here right here today, it's not really gone as expected. You know, we've taken a very different direction over the summer, but at the same time, I wouldn't exactly say I'm disappointed by that. I think it's very, very exciting right now to look at what is going on in the pivot position, because first of all, you've got to talk about Marc Casado. I think he's been very, very impressive in training in pre-season. Lots of positive signs coming from him, and I thought it was really interesting in the game against Real Madrid there. Hansi Flick really coaching Casado. You know, he actually took him aside in the game. He was passing on lots of instructions there, lots of detail being gone into from Hansi Flick, and I just think this is a player here in Casado that Flick appears to have really taken under his wing. You know, he's arrived at the club here as the new coach, and I think he's really identified Casado as a player who can step up, who can really fill a void that we've been missing in the first team, and I'm really excited by it there. I think Flick can certainly get more and more out of him. He's a talented individual, and he's been really patient waiting for this chance. You know, last season, he was in so many squad lists at Barca, called up to the first team, had to wait for his chance. He's so experienced, by the way, at the youth levels at Barca. This is a player here who knows what it takes to succeed here, and especially the understanding of the role that he's being asked to play. And I think he's definitely a player here that has caught Flick's eye, and that he believes there's lots more to come from. But then there's Marc Bernal, and this is a really exciting player as well for me. Somebody there in pre-season who I'm so glad we've gotten to see more of. And I thought it was great there to actually see a former coach at Barca there, Jordi Font, post a picture on social media of Marc Bernal and of Lamine Yamal. These two here playing at the youth levels at Barca, and you just wonder, are they going to be reunited soon on the field in Barca colours again, but in the first team together? That would be absolutely wonderful. And I thought there, the former Barca coach Jordi Font, he also gave a great quote on Bernal and his characteristics as a midfielder here. He said, when a defensive midfielder walks for 80% of the time when his team has the ball and he doesn't miss 80% of his passes, it means that he's always very well positioned and that he finds the best pass every time. That is Marc Bernal at 17 years old. And I think that's a really interesting quote there, because it's often a misconception, you know, especially at Barca, that we need the defensive midfield player who's quick, you know, who's very athletic, who's very physical. That's what we need there to be able to win the ball back in the right areas. It's nonsense, guys. You know, Sergio Busquets, the best defensive midfielder I've ever seen in my life, in his prime, he was none of those things. It is literally all about positioning, especially at Barca. It's about having the intelligence, about having a clear understanding of where you need to be when you have the ball, and even more importantly, where you need to be when you do not have the ball. And I think it's so important there to grow up at this club, to have players there coming through the youth academy, and they just get it. They understand what is required. Because look, if you're thinking 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody else, you don't need to be physically quick. You don't need to be always on the move running. You know where you need to be. You know the timing. You know the positioning. That is the most important thing here about this pivot role. And again here, this is why we're hearing in the media that Flick is in love with what he's seeing from Casado, from Marc Bernal, and also the two of them as a duo as well, working together there, working as that double pivot. He's seen it in training. He's now starting to see it in the pre-season matches, and the confidence is only rising here with these two in midfield. And that is ultimately why right now Barca are not thinking about a pivot signing, and I think that's really, really interesting. Like I said, at the start of the summer, it seemed as though something we'd simply have to do, but Flick, he's really satisfied with what he's been seeing. He has looked from within, he has been encouraged by that, and I actually believe, guys, personally, it's very refreshing for a new coach to arrive at Barca. Usually a coach would come in, especially one from the outside, and they think, okay, I'm starting my project, I want signings. If there's a possibility to bring in a new player, let's do it there. Spend money, get that player in, get me a signing. But he has looked from within, and he has understood the club very, very quickly here. Because actually, one of the things that was used against Flick by people before he even came here was that he was a coach from the outside of Barca. He wouldn't understand the club, he wouldn't understand the financial position, and he wouldn't trust in La Masia. And I think so quickly here, Hansi Flick has put all that to bed. He has come in, he's got a real understanding of the club, he's been very patient, very excited about the younger players, and already he is trusting in what he has. And that's the beauty of the club right now, because Hansi Flick is about to have even more top quality players at his disposal, because today the Euro 2024 winners have returned to the club. They've returned there to the training facility for the medical and physical test there. Lamine Yamal is back, Pedri returns, and Ferran Torres as well is back at the club. And these have all returned here earlier than was expected. I think all of them will be eager to be up and running, really, ready for when the team and Hansi Flick return from the USA tour. I think in the case maybe of Ferran Torres, there was an argument that he could have come back a bit sooner, maybe, that it would have been beneficial for him. He didn't play much football throughout the season. He didn't really play all that much throughout the Euros, of course. He didn't go to the Olympics, and he's one of those players, I feel, that does need to hit the ground running here. He does need to come in and convince Hansi Flick very, very quickly that he can be of use to the squad. So big pressure here on Ferran in these weeks to come. But I think it's interesting on Pedri right now, guys. We're hearing more and more reports here every day that goes by that he's desperately trying to be ready for that first game of the season. I don't think right now that it's ruled out that Pedri could be available against Valencia in a few weeks' time, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be tough there, and certainly starting in that game is very, very unlikely indeed. But guys, I just cannot wait to see Lamine Yamal. You know, I know he's been away on holiday, he's been understandably enjoying a few weeks' rest. It's been a really, really hectic summer for the young man, but to see him back here now and to just feel excited about seeing him in a Barcelona shirt again. You know, we want to see him putting in the kind of performances that we saw for Spain, but at Barca, and he's really excited to work under Hansi Flick. Cannot wait to see those combining, looking at what they can do in terms of a slightly different system here. Yamal should get more freedom. It should be a more direct style that he can certainly benefit from, in my opinion, and I just cannot wait to see him in a game again. This young man, he will get us all off our seats this season. But then the big question is undoubtedly right now, is there going to be any more Euro 2024 winners in this Barcelona team next season? Are we going to see, in the end, Dani Olmo sign for Barca? Now, the first thing that we have to address on that is, and there's a really good super thanks coming in here, very, very grateful for the fantastic support. Thank you. Do we really need Dani Olmo? That is the question. And it's a question that we are all asking ourselves every single day. Every single report that I see about Olmo, every single thing that we see about the price tag, in my head I'm thinking, okay, it's great, it's all good and well, but do we need him? Do we actually need this man? And that is why today we've got to talk about that in some detail, because right now in the media, guys, there seems to be a bit of a disagreement, you know, as to what Barca's current offer actually is. You know, Fabrizio Romano came out and said quite clearly it's 55 million euros fixed and 7 million euros in variables, structured in different ways there. So potential 62 million euro deal, but the Catalan media kind of disagree with that right now. You know, Mundo Deportivo and Sport are sort of coming out with figures that say that the bid might only still be 47 million euros fixed right now, with a total of 13 million in variables. So right now, we're undecided on exactly how much money is on the table, but what I can tell you is that it's a lot. And what we're also hearing is that RB Leipzig, they're not happy. They're just not happy with Barca. That's the vibe that I get right now from them. They don't really like our bids. They don't really like the way we've approached this deal. They also want, apparently, a lot of the money up front. They want a lot of this here not to be paid over a number of years in installments. They seem to be holding out for 60 million euros fixed, guaranteed money, and a lot of that to all be paid immediately. So Barca and Leipzig right now, they are still some way apart, I believe. I don't believe this deal is right on the verge of happening. There is still a lot that needs to be done, and the two clubs are definitely nowhere near a full agreement yet. But like I say, do we need him anyway? Because I would now like to go through all of the players, in my opinion, that can play the kind of role that Dani Olmo would come in and do. So in terms of a player here who is top quality, he does have talent, there's no denying that. I keep saying that. Olmo is a talented player, but the role that he would play at Barca, for me, we are stacked in. Let's start with Pedri. And I know what people will say about Pedri. Yes, he is incredibly talented, but he's also incredibly injury prone. And look, you can't argue with that either. He spent a lot of the time on the sidelines. We're waiting for Pedri here to figure things out and hopefully put together a run of games, a run of months here without injury problems. But if we can do that, he is a starter. You want him in your team. He is top quality. The only issue is injuries, if we can get that figured out. Then you've got Gavi. Now, this is interesting because people, I think, maybe don't believe Gavi can play in the 10 more advanced midfield role, but I believe that he can. We've seen him play incredibly well as an inverted winger, somebody there who can play in half spaces very well. Why couldn't he play behind the forward? I think he's actually very, very suited in some ways to that role. And he, by the way, is not injury prone. He had one very, very bad injury that's kept him out for a long, long time, but that doesn't make him injury prone now. He's got to recover from that. It's taken a long time, like I say, but once he's back, you'd hope he will be all okay and that he can play game in, game out into a very, very high level. Then, though, you've also got Fermin Lopez. Now, this is the thing right now, this thing about Dani Olmo. If we bring him in my mind, there are certain players in this team that will just be cast aside. We won't bother with them. We'll forget about them. Fermin is one of those, in my opinion, here. And I don't think we should be casting him aside. He is a very, very talented player who still has lots more to come, by the way. In terms of his breakthrough season, there's still lots more experience that he can gain here. There's still lots more levels that he might still be able to reach. We've got to give him a chance to do that. He's coming off the back here of an unbelievable goal-scoring season. This guy is talented. He can score goals. That's one of the most difficult things to do for any player, and especially midfielders. He can do that. Give him opportunities. And then you've got young players, or you've got the likes of Pablo Torre. Are you going to give him a chance? Are you going to cast him aside? Are you not even going to bother offering him up opportunities here? You've got Noah Darvic as well, player there that's looking again to make that step up to the first team. And I would even go further than this. Is the thing, you could actually list out so many Barca players. Gundogan, he can play well, advanced there from midfield. You saw him in his Man City days. He chipped in with goals regularly, big goals as well, big contributions in the final third. And what about Rafinha? He played his best football last season as the 10, playing there as an advanced midfielder in a central position, making really excellent runs in behind defensive lines. And again, there's all of these different players, all of these different options, and yet we're talking about spending 60 million plus on Dani Olmo. Now, like I say, he is a talent. He is a very, very good player. But do we need him? Is it genuinely a player here that needs to come in for big money on a long-term deal because we don't have options already? I just cannot get my head around that personally, guys. And people as well, super thanks coming in here as well. Thank you very much. Talking about alternatives. Maybe you save that money. Julian Alvarez is on the market this summer. He may well be leaving Man City for a big price, but he's somebody that many Barcelona fans would like to have a look at. And even somebody here a little bit more on the outside, maybe. A Salzburg midfielder, Oscar Glock. Wouldn't be surprised, though, actually, if Leipzig were to sell Dani Olmo, that they went and picked him up. That's the way that things usually work there with Salzburg and Leipzig. It's one big supply chain. So certainly they've probably got Olmo's replacement ready-made even now. But I just want to know your thoughts on this, guys. And I think it's something that we have to talk about. We have to have this debate over, because I look at this Barcelona team and there is so much quality and there's a lot of depth there in certain areas. And I actually believe here, this midfield area, I'm particularly looking more advanced in midfield, we're actually tripping over options. I believe that Flick can cook up something pretty spectacular with what we already have. So let me know, do you agree with that or do you disagree? Let me know exactly what you're feeling in the comments down below, and we'll continue to talk this through. I'll be back soon with lots more coming up on the channel, but I thank you indeed, guys, for your fantastic support. But until next time, as always, Visca, El Barça.